because one's natural inclination is to bounce in there and do it for them and help out, because that's what we want to do. We want to help people, but you can't. You're actually going to have to stand back, and you're going to have to work on you, and you're going to have to let them develop, because that's how you get better people. Don't let that lack of knowledge hold you back, because so many of us are really ignorant when we start. And even people who've gone to colleges and got book learning, it doesn't totally prepare you for the experience, I don't think, and so don't let that lack of knowledge, don't let anything that frightens you hold you back. You're only going to start, and at worst you'll fail, but at least you'll have tried.
So I'm going to rewind back to the top 3 tips that you gave earlier. The first one was lack of knowledge. And I'm wondering, how did you get over that feeling that, I just couldn't figure out. I need a lead. I need someone to help me. I need a mentor here. Or I have no idea how to do that. So might as well not try. How did you get over that?
There's 2 separate things going on there, I think. The might as well not try didn't come into it because of the children, which was wonderful. There just was no option to fail. I had to make it a success. And as it grew, of course, inevitably I had to borrow money to fund the first factory. And, that meant to some degree guaranteeing against a family home. And that meant it was even less possible to fail, So I was absolutely blinkered for all those early years. It had to work, whatever it took, which helps. So that not doing it didn't come into it. But I think fear of the knowledge and fear of failing. The knowledge, I knew nothing. I hadn't had a decent business before of any size. I hadn't held a position in a corporate of any height. I simply didn't know what I was doing from start to finish. But as it grew, people begin to get to know your business and know, and you get called a business leader and these things, you scratch your head and think, they're not talking about me, and you get, certainly for me, and I think for a lot of people, you get this imposter syndrome come in, and, you think, I remember the first time I won an award, I won some business coaching. And it was this lovely lady, actually, who I kept in touch with for a long time afterwards. But, she had a joint degree from Oxford in, I think it was Russian and psychology. So just about as frightening as you can get for somebody who was pretty ignorant and untrained and, had run loads of businesses, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, I can't bear this. She's going to come into and coach me, and she's going to find out. She's going to find out I don't know anything, and I'm so useless, and I'm ignorant, and, they're going to take the award away. I was really, really terrified of it. And, convinced that I didn't know anything. And oddly enough, in those days, because I was determined, for all that I might have climbed walls, I didn't actually let that stop me. I just thought, I've got, if you just keep trying. It was later on when I began to scale that I became more aware, because I started talking to other business leaders more. And I became more aware that, actually I hadn't done anything on the personal development front. And it was about time I did. And I started, so about 10 years in, I started to go and do courses on business, which was somewhat late. But, I don't think that ignorance should ever stop you. I really don't. In some ways, it was less daunting when I was convinced I knew nothing. When I found out there was more to know, it was even more frightening still.
For sure. And I love that being a single mom was your biggest driver. It's a blessing in disguise somewhat for your life, because being an entrepreneur is a noble thing. You create jobs, opportunities for other people. You help the economy. You influence other people. It is a noble thing to be an entrepreneur. And I love it when you mentioned about the imposter syndrome, because a lot of business owners are also in your position during that time, where it seems so surreal. I'm doing business. I have people in my team, and I have the I've been recognized here and there, and And I love how you got to validate your position in business, which is, you were saying that it's when you scaled up. Now, I would love to talk more about this scaling up, because they say 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years. That's a very, very tough number, 10%, to graduate from the first 5 years. How were you able to graduate that first 5 years and finally scale it up? Because you can't scale up if you're not yet done with the startup phase.
No, you can't. And I have to say, I think it varies sort of when scaling sets in, depending on sector a lot, and on time of your business. And I mean, tech's obviously moved scaling into a new dimension. But, for me in manufacturing, it was a gradual thing. And it's something a lot of people do, is just continue growing without thinking growth's a great idea, which in theory it is, but without sort of actually learning about scaling. And to me now, scaling is almost like a new phase, like a startup all over again. It's a new journey. It's a different journey. And I really wish I'd found that out somewhere in the earlier stages, because I think the best thing you could do is gear your business to that if that's where you're going to go. Though, of course, I would never have believed that I could have gone there anyway. So I guess that was another reason I didn't. But I doubt if I knew word scale at that point anyway. So it's different. But yeah, it's hard. It's difficult to scale up. You've got so many complete transformations of your business, from a startup. As you say, going from a team of, sort of a couple of you to a team of 40 is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And I don't think I necessarily did it very well. But it was all learning on the hoof. It's really difficult.
What are some of the biggest differences between that first 5 years of the startup phase to the scale up phase? What for you, aside from the employee numbers, of course, the employee number count, one of the most evident growths, or one of the most evidences of your growth, right? Yeah. Is your employee count or your client count. But what are the other main differences between that startup and scale up phase?
Right. Okay. I think one of the main differences, let's see if we can pick some main ones for you. I think one of them is that you've got to develop in a massive different way. I think startups, and probably one of the reasons you can get away with being ignorant, is, you're all new and you're finding your feet, whatever you're doing, however much knowledge you've got. And it's tremendous fun and you make mistakes, and that's all part of the startup, and it's not too disastrous. When it comes to scaling up, you're creating a business that will run eventually without you altogether, or with you so step back, depending at what stage. But you're actually creating a separate entity with you looking in, and you're changing your child from a toddler to a teenager to an adult, if you like. And I think that means that you've got to learn so much. You've got to learn to become a very different type of leader. In fact, it's about being a leader rather than being in the business, doing this, doing that, helping out here, jumping on that. You've got to stop all that. You've got to stand back and say, my job is to lead. And that's really hard to do, to step back and be the leader.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I love when you mentioned that during the startup phase, you're usually the go-to person. Let me do that. Let me finish that. Hey, do you need help with this? And when you're in this scale-up phase, you mentioned that you're going to have to be a leader. Look, Jan, a lot of people, when they hear leader, the thing that comes to mind is the guy or the girl that's most paid, that gets the special parking slot, that gets the special corner office, that gets all the perks of the executives. Like, these are the things that come to mind in our world today when you say leader. So what do you mean when you mentioned earlier that you're going to have to be a leader in the scale-up state?
As a leader, you've got to be the one who continually inspires people, which doesn't have anything to do with the pay of the office or any of those things you mentioned, and unfortunately. But you've got to be the one that gets everybody going. That can be your investors, your stakeholders, your people most of all, you've got to lay out that vision and get people so excited that they want to get on that train ride and they want to develop themselves and do better still the next day. And you've also got to find the people to do it. If you can do those things, if you can lay on a vision and keep people on side and inspired and keep finding people who are ideally better than you are. And that means you've got to be pretty secure because you've got to take on people, who you look at and think, oh, they know a lot more than I do. But those are the people who are going to take your business forward. So yeah, it's a lot about finding the right people with, there's a lovely, I think it is Warren Buffett quote, that you need intelligence, integrity, and energy. That's right, because if you think if the people you need to take on, you want them to be intelligent, you want them to be good at pushing the business forward, but you want them to have the energy. There's nothing worse than working with flat, negative people who go, oh, yeah, we could do that. You want them to go, wow, how exciting. And that helps you feed off their energy too. And I think that's really big, and people forget that, that you need that energy to flow both ways. Then it's back to the integrity thing, of course, because they have to genuinely buy into your vision, as well as, integrity at the other end of not actually helping themselves do everything in the business. But like we were talking about earlier.
For sure. And you mentioned that in the startup phase, we both agreed that you're the go-to person. Yes. During the scale-up phase, when you're the one, in your words, casting the vision and inspiring your people, does that mean you stop being the go-to person for these tasks?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's really hard. I mean, to some extent, you need to be available, which is a different thing from being the person who steps in and does for you. You have to let go and let them do, because you simply can't do the visionary stuff otherwise. You have to be on peak performance. And I think that's one of the really hard transferences, because going back to the people we are with the imposter syndrome, and we know we've got a lot wrong and all this, to say I am worth, because I am leader, I am worth saying, no, you damn well do it. I'm going to stand back from here and I'm not going to be the one who works till midnight, is really, really hard, because one's natural inclination is to bounce in there and do it for them and help out, because that's what we want to do. We want to help people, but you can't. You're actually going to have to stand back, and you're going to have to work on you, and you're going to have to let them develop, because that's how you get better people.
Paint a picture about your day-to-day now that you're in the scale-up phase, you're developing yourself, you're inspired. Like, how does that look like when you're inspiring people and casting the vision? I get the picture of this person might not be getting anything done. And, your people might see that, the boss is all talk. He's all inspiration. She's all about vision. But he or she is not doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I'm doing it. Like, how do you balance that out?
I agree. And it does look like that to a lot of people, which is horrible. I mean, firstly, you've got to think about the money, because you need to keep money flowing into that business. And if you're scaling, that's growth, and it might mean more money at certain times, and you've got to make sure it's there when it's needed. But equally, you're not borrowing way too much and running up enormous interest bills. And, so it's that balance with the money thing all the time. So, that's something that probably nobody else can do. At that sort of what I call early scale up. You might have accountants and things who help out, or financial directors later on. But at that point, you're very, very focused on the money. You're very focused on developing the business on a day-to-day basis, making sure that's going on, because you've got to change from being, everybody jump in and do everything business, to being a systemized business with people doing specific things as best as they can. You've got to spend time with your people. They need a lot of your time to inspire them and to give them feedback and to involve them. And, as I say, you've got to develop yourself. to learn more about how to grow your business, to come up with new ideas, to increase profitability, to look for new markets and find new people. Finding new people is going to take a huge amount of your time. It's really time absorbing to find people, especially good people. And your business will only grow as good as your people are.
Completely agree with that. It is hard to find good people. And for a lot of people who is in business, that statement right there is fiction. Because they feel like they never find the right people.
Yeah.
So how did you do it, Jan? How do you find these people?
I struggled. I mean, like everybody, I had very good people in the early stages, who were very on side and helped that early growth to early scale. And the culture was 100% right. And, that combination of culture and people and vision, when you get them right, is just unstoppable. And it grows too. You get a reputation for it. I remember people coming in and saying, I mean, I know there's probably not much hope of me working here, but, because everybody wants to, but, I really want a job here. But as it grew, actually, that culture diluted, because the people you start with often can't grow as fast as the business. And you often need to bring in people from outside. They may not even want to, in fairness. They may have started with a nice little cozy business, but small. And, the last thing they want to do is go in for all this stress and huge amounts of everything. So it may be their choice as much as anything, which it certainly was in the case of my two. But either way, you start to need to bring in the outside people, and that was a lot harder. The ones I had in the early days were definitely a lot better.
For sure. And in SEO Hacker, we are doing that right now. And it is tough because you just don't know if they're the right person and how they're going to be affecting your culture. Because usually when you say you're bringing in outside people, these are people who have experience and good authority in what they do. They know their stuff. And they're going to be mixing in with your people who have grown with you, pretty tender. And you're just not going to know how the waters are going to be churned during that time.
It's so true. And it can be a real oil and water mix, hate on side, because the existing people are terrified of being changed and what they like being taken away. You're absolutely right. It's a really difficult integration, that.
For sure.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
And so a lot of people today, their just do it habit sometimes involves just opening Shopee and Lazada. And, those are wonderful e-commerce platforms, but once you spend time with them, unnecessarily and unproductively, you start buying stuff that you don't need. And that's not going to be good for you.